We're rolling.
Welcome to the House Dudes podcast, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Jack Haas.
And I'm Josh Koth. Here at House Dudes, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
So we thank Ann and Mark Lackey for joining us here today. Ann and Mark, why don't we just start things off with starting with your background?
Well, thank you for having us, Jack. I'm Ann.
I'm Mark, and we certainly appreciate being here today.
And we have kind of an interesting background, right, Mark?
Yeah, we got started in the real estate business kind of as a solution to a problem we had. It wasn't like a lot of people say, I want to quit my job or go through and do something. We had some friends that were very close to us that got ill, and we saw when they couldn't work for their funds and their money and their income, we decided we needed to have some of our funds and money and income working for us. And we made a decision to go out and started getting into rental real estate at that point 19 years ago.
Yeah. So, the interesting part is you can start no matter where you are, and it's just a matter of having a plan and executing it.
Yeah. So our reason was for passive income.
Sure. So, that's the big reason why I got into things, because I realized pretty quickly that there wasn't a way for me to save to retirement. I had to take some sort of massive action. And you mentioned something about, you mentioned about some health concerns with some of your friends.
Yeah, we actually we were both in outside sales. So we were on a commission type basis and selling. So if you sell, you make some money. Mm-hmm. And our friends in our networking group, where we used to share business opportunities, two of them came down with cancer. One subsequently passed a year later. And during that year's time period, he couldn't work. So commission people don't work, they don't make any money. And his family really suffered from that. And it was an eye-opener for us. And we recognized, we don't work, we don't make money. And two, and for everybody that, just makes a regular salary or hourly, you can only put in so many hours in a year or, a week or a day or whatever, and you're really capped and limited. So if you want to save, like you're talking about for retirement, you sometimes have to take some things into your own hands, and you can't just plan on, your 401k at work or your retirement planning. And so we looked at that and said, we've got a plan for our retirement. We need to have our money working for us instead of us working for our money.
Mm-hmm. So you've been doing this for quite a while now. I think just before we started hit record here, you said about 20 years, right?
Yeah, 19, 20 years.
Sure. So and I know that you kick things off with a pretty big way. I mean, there's not a lot of people who start that first year with accumulating 4 rentals right off the bat. But what got you over that hump, that initial start to kick things, trust in the process, trust in your numbers, and go?
Well, first of all, I think the biggest thing for me was my family had always been successful in real estate in various different ways and fashion, but I knew real estate worked. I didn't really know how it worked, but it made sense to me when we broke it down. We read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all of that. And part of what made sense to us was the ability to have an asset that grows over time, that the tenant's actually paying for, and then there's excess money left over for repairs and that kind of thing. I've always worked for smaller companies. Mark's had a little bit better opportunity with some larger companies. Mm-hmm. My smaller companies never had any type of 401k plan or pension or anything like that. And I needed to figure out, what can I do to have income? And so we were challenged by our first, you go to this seminar, right? $39.99, and you can bring a friend for free.
And in 3 hours, you learn everything you know about real estate investing, right?
Yeah. In 3 hours, they're ready to sell you the next stage in the program.
Which is
Right.
exactly what happened.
And then we did the weekend seminar, and I think it was $1,750 or $1,700. In 2001, that was a lot of money for us, but we went to a 3-day boot camp seminar, and we were challenged in there to go out and find some rental homes in the Atlanta market that were less than $100,000 a year. Back then, $1,000 purchase. And back then, it was hard to find those, but we did. We found 4 of them.
So how did you find those? Did you find them off the MLS, or word of mouth, networking? How did you come about them?
So back then, the internet was still kind of new, right? I mean, this was, it wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot of listings online, but there was this one real estate website that I would look at. And so I would search the MLS on this particular website, and we found one. And we talked to the real estate agent who was there, and she said, hey, I've got 2 more that this investor is looking to sell. So we bought 3 of the 4 from this particular investor who was looking to relocate to Alabama. And so we picked those up, and I think one of them was tenant occupied. And we realized that, if one of them is empty and we only have one, then we have to carry the full load. But if we have 3 of them, the opportunity, actually, I guess 2 of the 3 were rented.
Two were rented.
And so we figured the cash flow from those 2 would help cover the 1 vacant that we needed to renovate. Mm-hmm. And while we were through that process, there was another investor across the street that saw what we were doing, and he says, I've been working on this house for 2 years. I'm not getting very far. Are you interested in buying this one? And we said, sure. So that's how we got 4 in one.
And that one, the plumbing wasn't done, the electrical wasn't done, so I had to do all that, then the sheetrock and build it out. It looked on the outside like it was complete, but
there are studded walls in the
inside. But we found tired landlords, tired investors, and bought from them. And they're all on the same street. We don't always recommend people to buy houses close together on the same street in case something happened in the neighborhood that drove down prices, or you're competing with yourself for rentals. But we still have those 4, and we've continued to grow. We had a plan in the beginning to acquire 2 properties and per year and go forward across 10 years to get to 20 properties. And that was our goal. So we actually achieved the first 2 years when we got those 4. And we overachieved in some other areas on acquisitions too.
That's so did you you're talking about doing a lot of this work yourself, Mark. Did you know a lot of this type of construction and manual labor type of skills in the past, or was this something like you tried to have to learn on the fly?
Yeah, actually, fortunately for me, my father taught me a lot of skills. Mm-hmm. We used to build things together. We'd work in the garage and drink hot cocoa and build shelving and do stuff. And I had built a home before, had designed it and built it. So I'm very skilled at doing that. So, I can hang cabinets by myself. I know how to build the process to help support them so you can do it alone. So in the beginning, I did a lot of that work myself. Mm-hmm. We got to a point, though, I couldn't do it because I was working my regular job, and evenings and weekends I was doing this construction. And we soon found out it didn't make sense because I could actually take our time and go out and find properties to invest in and make more money than I could in actually doing the work myself. So we soon found a contractor to help us. And on one of those first 4 we bought, when the tenant moved out, we did a big renovation and I didn't touch a thing.
Mm-hmm. So, this is a lot to do with scaling then, because it sounds like you really grew fairly quickly. How did you manage to scale this to the point you are today? I know how big is your current portfolio of properties you manage yourself, that you own yourself?
Yeah, well, we leverage finances. And so back when we got started, we took out a home equity loan on our primary residence, and then went in and bought the properties that we initially bought, the first three Ann was talking about, with essentially nothing down. I mean, we bought them with a minimal investment, and then they started having cash flow. Mm-hmm. The fourth one I had to pay cash for because I couldn't get a loan for a home that wasn't able to be occupied. Mm-hmm. So we used a home equity line to do that and do the renovations on credit cards and anywhere we could acquire money. And it really strapped us. But after we finished that renovation, we did a traditional loan, got our money back out of it so that we had more money to work with. The key to the whole thing for us was in the front end was having the availability of credit, the home equity line on our primary residence, and that was a big risk. Mm-hmm. And putting a lot of materials and things on credit cards was a big risk. Mm-hmm. But going forward, we've achieved well over our 2 properties per year for 10 years, and we're able to purchase through the process of using cheap money with minimal down mortgages. Now, when the economy kind of tanked and they stopped giving out loans to most people, it really tightened things up. But they're back doing that now where you can get 10, 12, 15, 20 loans easily from lenders, kind of like we did, and be able to go out there and get that with minimal amount down. The key to it was for us, every property we bought, we wanted after we could pay the taxes, the insurance, the mortgage payment, which is typically called the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. We would have about $300 a month cash flow left over so that would cover the vacancies and cover the repairs and maintenance. Mm-hmm. Some of the properties didn't need it and it's kind of got ahead, and some of them needed more than our $300 per month. But we were able to do that, and then lenders actually would loan money because we had positive cash flow.
Sure.
So that's how we laid out to get started. And then we leveraged through time the cash flow that came out of those properties to the banks. And we ended up getting 30-some mortgages.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how can somebody new to this build that relationship with the bank? Because I think, we've had some success with dealing with the smaller banks locally that do in-house underwriting. But there's a lot more to that relationship building than just handing over your financials. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when we got started, we found lenders that had mortgage originator, the person you call and you set up and you make the loan application with and all, that were actually investors themselves. And we found that, and they then went out to a pool of lenders. So, I've got loans with U.S. Bank and Wachovia and Chase. I've got them all across every bank because those are where the funds were from the mortgage professional that understood rental real estate. Because they could put the package together to give it to the underwriter. If you go to the traditional branch for Bank of America and you go in there and tell them you've got a bunch of rental homes, they look at you like you're crazy. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's getting a lender that has access either through a bank or through a pool of banks that understands what you are and what you do, because they understand that if you've got a property, you've had it for a while, called seasoning, that it looks good on your loan application and can be counted as part of the income for the rent, versus you go into the traditional banks, all they see is, you're writing $25,000 worth of mortgage payments each month. They don't count the $35,000 worth of income that you've got from the rent. Mm-hmm. So that was real good for us. We also went to our local small banks and sat with the folks that are actually on the decision making, whether it's the president, vice president, whoever it is that's on the board, and got them to be involved in it and gave them enough of the information to show what you really are making and what your return is on those properties.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, when we needed funds, what we would do, we buy a house and fix it up and flip it and take the proceeds, because you can flip 3, 4, 5 houses and have enough money to potentially buy outright another rental. So part of the program I encourage investors that are flippers to do is to buy 3, flip them, and on the 4th one, take the proceeds from the first 3, roll it into that 4th one, and hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because flipping seems really great and grand, and a lot of people are getting into it, but it's a lot of hard work, and it doesn't pay like you and I were talking about for your retirement. You need that rental income.
Mm-hmm.
So, figure out how many houses you got to flip to be able to then buy one and put into rental service. And so we've encouraged a lot of newbie investors to start on that path and not always just take every penny from a flip and use that for living expenses.
So you're telling us that you can't flip a house in 30 minutes over a weekend?
No. Now, you might get somebody to buy your contract from you. That kind of happens fast, but it's still 30, 40 days till it's going to close.
Yeah. No, it's always amazing. We have people who join our real estate meetup quite often, and they're getting into flipping, and there's a lot of romanticism around flipping houses. There's
Yes.
And unfortunately, when you get that emotionally involved in something like that, the next thing you know, you've over rehabbed for the neighborhood and you can get into trouble. But it's really important, like you said, to take some of those proceeds and drive towards a greater goal, which is that buy and hold portfolio.
Yeah, and that's what we believe, because people will get started in this, like you say, the glorious part, which is the flipping, because they see it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And on TV they always seem to make a lot of money. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But we would talk to people that you flip, you have to compare with what you're doing with the neighborhood. Like you said, you don't want to over improve.
Mm-hmm.
People get into this that don't have a lot of cash but have a lot of time. They may become a wholesaler where they'll get houses under contract at reduced prices and then sell the contract, which we talked about a little bit earlier, being able to do something in a weekend.
Right.
And we have bought a lot of contracts from wholesalers. They make money on the deal. I then take it, renovate it, and either flip it or renovate it and put it into rental service.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the component of becoming a passive income investor, but you need to have a little bit of credit and a little bit of cash typically to get into that part of it. So, there's the multiple parts of the business that people come in, the sexier part, the flipping or wholesaling, because the money's quicker and seems bigger. But, they just have to keep doing that over and over and over. The properties I bought 19 years ago still throw off cash every month for me. So for me, the passive income's a lot sexier because it's going to keep coming forever.
Mm-hmm. So you have really different aspects of your business, or maybe even have broken them off into different companies, right? You have the investing, with the buy and hold. Do you do property management of some kind for others today?
Yes, we do. We actually have 7 businesses that we run.
Oh, wow. You're just going to add 8th, and you're just not busy enough?
Well, each one serves a different function, and I certainly wouldn't tell anybody to get started with 8.
Yeah, no.
What I would say, and what we do when we are talking with new investors, is say, first of all, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what is your goal? What is it that you want to do? Like, so for us, it was about passive income, right?
Right.
So we started with that. We started with our own portfolio. As we got experience with our own portfolio, we had people that said, hey, you're really good at managing and keeping your properties filled. Could you do that for us? And so we made a decision to start the property management business. So that in our state, that requires a license and a broker and all this other good stuff. And so in 2005, once we had learned a lot of the hard knocks on our own stuff, we started managing for other people. After that, so there's a component of active income in managing other people's, right? But there's also some element of passive. Once you get the lease, and you're just managing it, you have staff that can help, deal with some of the challenges that come up with that. And then, in 2014, we got to where staffing was a challenge. And so we decided we needed to have an alternate type of staff. And so we started Hire Smart, where we were outsourcing with a twist and started helping other brokers, owners, investors, business owners scale their business through utilizing global employees, basically. So that's also, we're a recruiting company, we're a recruiting and training company, but we also have a partner in the Philippines that we work with so that once we have a placement, we have an ongoing interest in that placement afterwards, since that's our passive income.
And a new investor gets started and they say, hey, I need a logo, I need a business card, I need a web page, whatever it is. They're not a skilled person at that, so they'll outsource those tasks. Typically, they'll pay somebody just to do the web page or just to do their logos and all. And we would do that along, so we were accustomed to having people help us. And then we got to the point where we had grown so much, we have so many employees, and we needed somebody else to do another task, a full-time task. And that's when we had decided to outsource with virtual assistants for full-time support. And then kind of like how we got started in property management, our friends had said, hey, you manage well, can you help us? We had brokers and investors came to us and said, hey, you're doing a great job with those virtual assistants. Can you bring one for me? Can I have one to work for me in my company? And so kind of out of that was born our Hire Smart virtual assistant business, where we provide full-time virtual assistants. So, we fell into our investing because of friends getting ill, and then property management because it was attractive to do that because our friends needed help, and then our virtual assistant business because, again, our friends needed help. So those businesses have grown through that.
Well, virtual assistants are kind of the thing and the rage in the real estate community right now. And in fact, I feel sometimes we can get a little overwhelmed with those type of choices and how to select a company or a group to help you with that type of thing. Are there questions, like if somebody's considering having or hiring a VA, what type of questions should they be asking? Like what type of vetting should they be doing in order to make sure that they are working with the right people?
So I would say, first of all, unless you're an expert in that, I would outsource it to someone like me. And there's different companies like us.
Sure.
I always kind of do the analogy for my property management friends, like an owner can self-manage, but they don't have access to all the tools. They don't have access to the legal. They don't have access to the best tenants, all of advertising, all of that, right? And so typically when you have a person that's never really kind of managed people before, done the hiring process or anything like that, they're better off using a service. And there's several services. Some use some are part-time. We only do full-time dedicated, but there are others out there. hiring globally is very different than hiring your neighbor to do a job. However, you can what we call insource if that is, if that's of interest. The main thing to focus on is do what you're good at. Do whatever it is that you're really good at, that you're passionate about, that you love to do that, because you're going to be better at it. If you're not good at something, then figure out who can you partner with, who can you hire, who can complement your skill set so that you can have the highest and best use and happiness of what you're doing every day. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things, Josh and I both come from an IT background. So the first thing that we think we can do everything, when it comes to especially IT oriented stuff, whether it's building the website or editing this podcast or throwing up a podcast website or what have you. It wasn't until we just decided that maybe that's not the best use of your time. It wasn't until it was a mindset hurdle for us to get through. I know when it comes to your business, the person who's going to care about it the most is yourself, but you also have to learn to let certain things go and know that it's just consuming time and not generating revenue.
Right.
Yeah, so many people, they talk, hey, I'm so busy, but they're just many times just doing a busy job, busy work, and it doesn't bring a return. And so we try to evaluate every task we do or what we outsource to our virtual assistants or to our employees at this point and saying, what type of return? Does it make me money and does it move me forward, or does it just take time and feel like I'm moving forward? And
right.
Those are real tough questions, especially in the beginning, because you get started in this business because it looks so glamorous and you really want to run hard and work hard and turn it into something productive. But you do, even in the very beginning, need to look at what task am I doing and what are the potentials for the return. Some things you can look at and say immediate return. If I get something under contract, I can sell that contract as a wholesaler and make a potential return. Other things are you buy a list of names or leads or you stick signs out on the side of the road, bandit signs, says I buy houses, and you've got your phone number there. You're hoping for a return there.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the things that the guidance of a good guide or counselor or somebody that's coaching you is going to help guide you to making decisions. But some people just get up and go to meetings and just spin their wheels a lot and really don't do things that are going to bring around productivity of a return on their investments.
Professional students.
Yes.
Yeah. No, in fact, we went through the exercise of actually creating a list of activities that were like, these are the money-making activities, and when in doubt, refer to the list.
Great.
So because otherwise you can get stuck on designing your own business card, and next thing you know, you've blown an afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So again, it all starts with knowing what it is that you want, and then designing the lifestyle to do more of what you want, and then hire, partner, do whatever you need to do to get those other tasks that either really aren't a good use of your skill set or time to somebody else. And while intuitively we know we should do that, the control freak in all of us isn't always ready to let go. Mm-hmm. And so we always, we have to check ourselves and say, really, are we going in the right direction? And most of the time we are, aren't we, Mark?
We most times are, but we still find that sometimes we're tied up in our own minds that only I can do that job. Only I can do it right. And we were talking to somebody just last weekend. He said, well, I need to make sure it's right, and I need this. So you're getting very little work done because you're making sure you're doing it right, when you could have somebody else, 1, 2, 3, whatever number of people that could do that same job that you're doing and get much more and still have 80 to 90% of it done exactly like you would. And maybe there's a little bit that's different, but you can spend all day with perfection and get nothing done. So there's sayings about that. And, if you've got to go for perfection, you're going to really slow yourself down in this business.
Because done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect.
Yep. No, and that makes a lot of sense. It's a lot like the podcast or some of the social media, that type of thing that we do on a regular basis. It's better to get it out there than sit here and edit. That's why when we first started the podcast, we would spend hours editing it, making sure everything was just perfect. All of the levels were just right. And now it's just direct record from the microphone and we just publish it because the consistency outweighs any perfection we could do.
Well, it also shows you that you're real and human. I mean, that's the part.
The dog barking in the background is okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what life really is.
So these virtual assistants, can you give us some examples as to what are some of the tasks that people typically have them do?
Well, the broad answer is they can do anything with a computer and a phone.
Sure.
So that's a really broad answer. The specific task that a lot of investors would be interested in is, research, right? Because whether it's researching on, what an owner paid for it, who is the right owner, what are the comps, et cetera, or you're doing research for skip tracing to try to find an owner for a specific property, or you want them to pull non-owner occupieds, or, again, there's lots of different things that they can do on the research side. They can take calls. They can make calls. They can do, like I said, competitive market analysis. They can do what we call agent outreach, which is just networking with agents and reminding your agents in your market that you're looking for off-market properties. And if they can't list it because it's not a pretty home, let's see if we can get an offer and they can make a commission. And there's literally, the sky's the limit as to what they can do. So when I'm working with a client, one of the first things I ask, as I mentioned earlier, is what is it that you really enjoy doing? How can you do more of that? And what's keeping you from that we can focus our energy on? And so that's kind of how I help my clients figure out what's the highest and best use of the return for a virtual assistant.
And many times people don't like to talk on the phone. I mean, if I'm in sales and have been my whole life, so I like talking. But a lot of people come into this real estate business, that's not their forte. They've got a different type of background. They're not real comfortable. And so what they'll have is the phone's ringing, somebody's calling in, and they may not be comfortable. So a lot of times what they'll do is have, after all that research is done, the calls come into their VA, and the VA can then qualify with 5, 6, whatever questions, that this is a real opportunity. So, with the question, where is it at? Does it need some work? How much are you expecting to get out? Just some of those basics. They can see if it's a real opportunity and set an appointment on my calendar or your calendar or whoever it is. So, hey, this sounds like we might be able to buy your home. Are you available Thursday at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? Can I have you and the missus there because we need to talk to both of you? Oh, it's 7 o'clock? Great, wonderful. So they would put it on my calendar, then pull all the research of the market, details of the house, do all that background work so I could study it, go out on the appointment, and actually write an offer. And so to simplify that process for people that aren't comfortable on the phone, it's worked out real well. To set those appointments. 2, if somebody's tied up in the phone and they've got a VA that can answer, that's great, because if somebody calls in off of a bandit sign or an ad you've placed and they can't reach a live person, you know what they do. They hang up and they dial the next person that sent them a card or a letter or the bandit sign, because the people, we have rental homes that are non-owner occupied. And so because of that, somebody's done research, and every day I get 2 or 3 postcards from people that say, we buy houses. So you know these people that are going to sell, that are in trouble or whatever it is, are getting cards and letters. And if you don't answer the phone live or have somebody that does and sets an appointment quickly, they go on to the next potential investor.
Well, it sounds like that you are really specialization is helping investors scale and implement. I get we talk to a lot of people who sell a lot of education or provide a lot of resources in that regard. But, you got your hiresmartvas.com, and do you do some of the training? You train those VAs in as well regarding the business?
That's part of our recruiting and training fee that we charge. Yes.
Sure. So what other aspects, how do you help other investors in implementing some of these things?
Well, again, that's pretty much all we do now. We used to do coaching and stuff like that. Right now our whole focus is helping business owners scale through the use of using global outsourced talent. Sure.
No, that's awesome. It's great to have that type of specialization, because once you get things start to spread a little thin, and then it doesn't get the proper attention it needs.
Right.
It doesn't. And you hire your friend that that has some extra hours, or your cousin needs some money, and they're off of school, and you hire them, and they do a few jobs or tasks for you, and you need to outsource. But at some point, as you're growing, you get to that point that you would come to us when you need somebody full time to help you. If you're doing it on a part-time basis, we're not quite ready. You're not quite ready for full-time. But typically what we find is that investor has invested in bringing in some help to help, whether it's just pull some records and, send some emails, or send out, yellow letters, or whatever it is. Our VAs can send out yellow letters. They pull the data for the potential sellers, dump that into a file that goes to the yellow letter company that fulfills it, and then it goes out. So there's all these tasks that they're doing that they've grown to a point, and they just get to a point that they're tired or can't hire enough local people to help them out, and then they reach out to us for somebody full-time to help them.
The cost for what we do all in for the first year is $20,000 a year. So, that's the price point that we're looking at. So for some of the new people, that's a stretch, right?
But that may just be the cost of a flip, or the profit on a flip.
Right. So the reality is, again, you've got to think about, what is your long-term strategy? What are you focused on? How can you get there faster? And we usually recommend, as Mark mentioned, that, if you don't have that cash to invest in your business, which some do, some don't, then, get your systems in place, hire somebody. You're going to spend a little bit more probably on an hourly rate, but they're more flexible because they're part-time, right? But start implementing in your business where you're not doing everything yourself, because you can't ever scale or grow if everything is dependent upon you.
And going back to our earlier conversation, we buy properties, put them into rental service. If I don't have enough money, I go flip 2 or 3 properties and take that and put it into rental, right? So I'm growing my inventory there. The same thing needs to happen with this business as you're a flipper or a wholesaler. You put some money away, and think about this. If you can take less time developing the list, doing the research or whatever, and going out on those appointments, and you can make $20,000 on a flip, or you can make $5,000 or $7,000 on a wholesale deal, and you can do more because you've outsourced all of the grind work, the mundane, the repetitive work, and it's got you out there in front of a seller to put the deal together. It's worth its weight in gold. So you're making investment, and if you can have a VA for $20,000 and do 2 more deals this year than you would have been, the first deal will pay for it. The second deal is just pure profit. and then you've got less time invested. You actually have more of a life, or you can put more time in and grow that business.
Sure. It really gives a person the opportunity to, we all hear that saying over and over and over, that you need to work on your business, not in your business. And it's really given the person that opportunity.
Absolutely.
It does. And so, it's an investment. People need to get to a point that they're able to do that. But once our clients do, and they see that they are doing 5, 6, 8 more deals a year, mm-hmm. It more than pays for it. The return is just tremendous. But it's getting that first step, getting that deal done, not taking all that money and partying and having fun, putting some back so that, you can bring on a VA, you can start saving for your passive income rental and doing that and building that business wisely, like you say.
Sure. So if people wanted to learn more about this or reach out to you, how would they do so?
Probably the easiest thing to do would go to hiresmartvas.com/appointment if they want to have a 30-minute consult, if they feel like, they're willing and able to take their business to the next level. If they just want some good information, we have a great blog that people can kind of read through and kind of get some ideas and things like that. We're also willing to give away a book, which is hiresmartvas.com/podcast for them listening to the podcast. So it's one of our best-selling books called Multiply Yourself. And it gives kind of a great introduction to how to multiply yourself. I mean, it's actually a great book. So that will help as well. So any one of those 3 resources should be helpful.
And everybody go to REIRookies.com, and I'll make sure I'll put all of those links in the show notes, as well as some additional contact information for Ann and Mark. Really appreciate your guys' time today. It was a great conversation. And I really liked the insight and really enjoyed the conversation around the VAs and how they can help expand somebody's business.
Well, thank you for having us, Jack. We do appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and we wish great things to all those investors and business builders that listen to you.
Yeah, really appreciate it, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, have a great day. We've put a lot of effort into providing useful content, and if you found value in the show and have any interest in supporting us with a small donation, head over to patreon.com/housedudes.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, shoot us an email at info@housedudes.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @housedudes. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other investors out there find the show.
And remember, massive positive impact requires
massive positive action. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by HouseDudes.com. Do you live in a good cash flowing market? If so, Turnkey isn't the best choice for you. You should buy in your market. If you don't live in a great market for investors, where can you find profitable cash flowing properties? We love the Midwest, where prices are reasonable and the people are great. We personally invest here and have lived in the area all of our lives. So how does Turnkey work? We find the property, we rehab the property, and we find you a tenant and place you under the care of our local property manager, who we trust with all our own investment properties. I'm sure you have questions about how the process works and what to do next. If that's the case, fill out the contact form on housedudes.com, and we'll reach out to see if you are a good fit for our business. We have a limited supply of properties every month, so we can only sell to a select few qualified buyers. We'll see you on housedudes.com.
I don't like to tell a man what to do with his money, but if you ain't investing in property, then you're dumber than a dummy.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
Well, buy property. That's my advice.